Alright, people, I'm going to get straight into this. No pomp and circumstance, none of that, because honestly, that's not what this pay-per-view has done for me. It just hasn't. I'm sorry. This is the Night of Champions. When you're a champion, you're supposed to be, ready to defend that belt during one of the. It's a pay-per-view that's supposed to make the champion shine, but it really didn't. Except for maybe a few championships. That's one thing I'm going to say about that. But honestly, the one thing that I didn't expect was Triple H actually coming out for the opener to actually kind of kick things off. But the one thing I didn't really expect was the fact that we end up having an IC Championship match as well as a filler match later on that day. Later on that night, actually. So we end up having 8 matches on the card, which is pretty good. It's a pretty healthy sized card, which is very good, to be honest with you. But starting off with the kickoff, we had the tag team turmoil. There was no turmoil at all in this match at all. It felt more like a Royal Rumble match, and it was a given that we knew who was going to win. The Primetime Players. It's a given. These guys had a huge push. We all know why. I'm not getting into it. It's no point. But either or, they end up having a huge push and they end up winning. Moving on from there, for the first match on the card was the IC Championship match. The match was slow as molasses at best because, let's face it, Curtis Axel absolutely could not figure out how the wrestlers go. He does not have any chemistry in the ring yet. It's something that he's still learning. But honestly, he's slow as molasses. He just can't move as fast as Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston's a high flyer and he's a brawler. And honestly, you would like to see kind of mixed fighting styles like that, but it's just something that just didn't work because Curtis Axel is still new. He's still fresh. He still needs work. But honestly, even though he was in the Nexus and you think that he had all these matches when he was McGillicuddy, he still needs work. He still lacks chemistry. And it just was a really slow match at best. And I really wish it ended fast. But what really made me mad was the fact that Curtis Axel still ended up holding the belt. But he still ended up holding the IC belt. But he doesn't defend it well. He is not a good champion at all. And it was just given to him on a silver platter, in my humble opinion. It really was. I was hoping that he would lose it because Kofi Kingston will pretty much bring a lot more honor and prestige to that belt than Curtis Axel would ever do. But moving on to the next match. I'm just going to go into the championship matches, and then after that I'm going to go into the standalones, and then I'm going to go to the main event. So let's talk about the U.S. title. I really didn't care at all. Dean Ambrose should have stepped it up. This is the first match he's ever been on a card. First match he's ever defended his title on the card, period. And he couldn't even step it up. I was really disappointed to actually see that. But honestly, Dolph Ziggler, it would have been a downgrade for him, and he did everything he could to make that match look good. But Dean Ambrose just couldn't. He just couldn't step it up. Moving on to the tag team match. This is a match that I actually liked because it showed that the Primetime Players were hungry for the title. You could tell. They had the fear, they had the hunger in their eyes. They had no fear going in there. They were dominating. They really did put on a really great match. They did. The Shield tried to actually even that out, which made it really good. Rollins and Reigns are really great as a tag team. They have really great chemistry together as well as the Primetime Players, which made the match really great. And I was really, honestly rooting for the Primetime Players because it's something they wanted for so long. But honestly, it's a shame that they didn't win, but then you can understand why, because it's with the Shield. The Shield's really hot when it comes to this whole corporate storyline, so it kind of makes sense for them to actually win. But honestly, I really do feel that the Primetime Players one day are going to be champs. Just not right now. Moving on to the Divas title. Good grief. I was really disappointed in this match because honestly, I really felt that AJ Lee was going to bring it. Not only that, I thought it was going to be like the WWE Divas versus Total Divas, and that was pretty much not happening. The Divas kind of stepped out and bailed on AJ Lee, and then AJ Lee did nothing but be a cowardly heel throughout the entire match. And then she ends up doing the Black Widow for the win against Natalya. Please. That's something that really didn't sit well with me at all. This is a girl that taught all that yin yang, saying that she's the one that's like the dominant, that she was like the dominant chick in the WWE. She was the one that pretty much made the WWE Divas division where it was, and she couldn't bring it. Come on now. I know that she has it in her because the match she had with Caitlyn was phenomenal. What happened to that AJ Lee? I wish that AJ Lee came back. But anyway, moving on from there. We end up getting the Miz versus Fandango. Oh gosh. The Miz versus Fandango. I'm literally so sick to death of Fandango still not knowing anything about wrestling in the ring. He had zero chemistry at all with The Miz, just like he had zero chemistry with Chris Jericho at WrestleMania. He has not learned a thing since WrestleMania. He's a great entertainer. He's a great heel. He has music that puts him over, and Summer Rae makes him look good. But that's all he has. He's terrible in the ring. He really needs to work on his game. But honestly, The Miz ended up winning. But I really feel that Fandango really needs to work on his character. He really does need to do something with him. But moving on from there. Alberto Del Rio versus RVD. Good grief. Alberto Del Rio is probably one of the most boring champions, more boring than JBL. But at least I can say about JBL is that JBL literally made you want to hate him to where you cared about that belt leaving him as quickly as possible. Does anybody care about Del Rio? No. Not ever since he lost the cars. He lost the whole Regal aristocrat thing, and then when he lost Rodriguez, nobody cares about him anymore. No one cares. And then the finish was probably the most cowardly finish I ever saw in my entire life. Ugh, good grief. I was so done with that match, but it kind of made me upset that RVD didn't win, because that means the storyline is going to continue. But let's move on to the main event of the night. Actually, no. Let's move on to my main event of the night. CM Punk versus Curtis Axel versus Paul Heyman. This was a good match. This was a very exciting match because it's CM Punk. CM Punk brings it. And even though Curtis Axel was slow as molasses, he was still somewhat slow in this entire match, but he got better as the match goes on. The one flaw that is with Curtis Axel right now is that Curtis Axel relies on his opponents to bring up his A game. He doesn't bring up his A game on his own. He allows his opponents to bring out the best in him, which is good to a certain extent, but you have to know how to bring out the best in yourself instead of actually allowing other people to do it for you. He tries to get people to carry him in matches, and unfortunately that's what CM Punk did, but it made the match better, so I'm not necessarily complaining about that all the way. You end up having Curtis Axel tapping out and having CM Punk getting his comeuppance somewhat when he actually handcuffed Paul Heyman and literally beat the crap out of him with a Singapore cane. Only in the end, out of nowhere, to have Ryback pretty much spear him. And, well, that's something that was confusing in all itself. But then it kind of makes you interested to see what's going to happen on Raw. Seeing how they're going to fit Ryback in there and how they're going to actually kind of put this whole storyline thing together. So in a way, I can't necessarily down that because I'm kind of curious to see what they're going to do on Monday night. But it was an overall good match, and I really did enjoy myself watching that. But moving on from there. Honestly, the main event of the night. This main event has been hyped up for weeks because of the whole corporate storyline. You got Triple H practically humiliating, doing everything he can to downgrade Daniel Bryan night after night after night. Made Big Show cry. Forced everyone in the whole locker room to come out and watch Daniel Bryan get the crap beat out of him. Had the Shield beat the crap out of him. Had Randy Orton and the Shield beat the crap out of him. And had Big Show being forced to try to beat the crap out of him. So why on earth would Triple H change his mind at the last minute? I don't know. I guess out of the blue, he really did start to become a legitimate businessman. And actually wanted to see whether or not Randy Orton was the true face of the WWE. Even though that storyline still doesn't make any sense at all to me, period, whatsoever. But honestly and truthfully, I will say this. That was a good match. It was a really good match from the beginning. I kind of started becoming less interested in it, but then it started picking up as time went on. But the biggest thing that got me is that everybody expected a swerve. Everybody was looking for the swerve. The IWC and YWC, they were expecting a swerve. I was. We didn't get one. And it was good. It made me happy because Daniel Bryan actually did have his moment in the sun to be the champion. But here's the kicker. You end up having a fast count from the ref. A corrupt ref at that. Probably was tired of Randy Orton winning, so here was the fast count. We all know this is going to happen on Raw. They're going to bring out the ref and say the ref did the fast count. Whether or not they're going to reverse it, I don't know. But honestly, it seems like it's less likely that they're going to actually reverse this. But it was nice to see Daniel Bryan actually have a win. but I'm kind of curious to see what they're gonna do on Raw. My overall thoughts is this: this Night of Champions didn't feel as regal as I thought it would. The tag team turmoil, there was no turmoil at all, and some of the matches really did kind of lack chemistry, and actually kind of lacked any kind of interest at all with me. But there were a few matches that actually did kind of outshine the others, especially when it came to CM Punk. But there were the standalone matches. There were pretty much two championship matches that I really did care about throughout the entire card, and both the standalones were actually pretty well. One of the standalones was actually pretty good. But honestly, guys, I want to hear what your thoughts are about Night of Champions. Leave your comments in the comment section below, or send a video response on how you feel Night of Champions should have went, and who you feel was the best champion, and whether or not that guy should have been champion. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts, and I will look forward to actually seeing you guys. Well, look forward to my review on Monday night. This is Ninja Girl 30 signing off. Peace out. Later.